Fire in the Heart, the story of Jessie Carter. Jessie Carter was an ordinary girl from a small town nestled in the endless fields of Iowa. She worked as a waitress at a local coffee shop, dreaming of a big life. But her days were routine: orders, tips, fatigue, and then all over again. Since childhood, Jessie loved to draw. She spent hours sketching, creating paintings that reflected her dreams and emotions. But every time she thought about taking a step toward her dream of becoming an artist, she was overcome with doubt. "Do you think you can make a living doing this? Artists starve," her former teacher at school once said, and these words became a burden for Jessie that she carried for years. One day, after another grueling shift at a coffee shop, she sat in her small apartment looking at her old paintings. Her eyes filled with tears. "Why am I afraid to even try?" she thought, but the answer was always the same: fear of failure. The next morning, Jessie woke up to a call from her best friend, Amy. Amy knew about Jessie's dream and always tried to encourage her, even though she had heard it herself. "It's not for me. I don't have the talent." This time the call was different. Amy got straight to the point. "Jessie, I just found out about an art contest in our town. You have to submit your artwork. This is your chance." Jessie didn't know how to respond. She began to look for excuses. "Emmy, I don't have anything worthwhile. And who would be interested? My work is too simple." But Emmy didn't back down. "Stop it. Your drawings are great, and you know it. Just believe in yourself for once. I've already sent you the information about the contest. You have a week." This call left Jessie thinking. She pulled out her old sketches, spread them out on her desk, and began to look at them. Most of them were imperfect, incomplete, but each one had a part of her soul in it. That evening she decided to go for a walk. Passing by a park, she noticed a small exhibition of amateur artists. People were standing in front of the paintings, discussing them and admiring the details. "Their work is imperfect, too," Jessie thought. She walked up to one of the artists, a middle-aged woman who was painting with pastel colors. "Your work is very beautiful. How did you decide to exhibit them?" Jessie asked. The woman smiled. "Oh, I had my doubts for a long time. But one day my son said to me, 'Mom, you'll never know what you can do unless you try.' That made me take action." These words touched Jessie deeply. She realized that she was becoming her own biggest obstacle. The next day, Jessie took a few sheets of paper and pencils and started working. At first it was hard. Her hands were shaking and every line seemed imperfect. She kept stopping and thinking about giving up, but then she remembered what Amy and the woman in the park had said. Jessie spent 5 days working on her new artwork. She painted scenes that reminded her of her childhood: the old bridge in her town, the field of wheat she saw from her house window, and a portrait of her mother, who had always supported her in her youth. On the 6th day, she had 3 completed paintings. It wasn't much, but for Jessie it was proof of her perseverance. When the day of the competition came, Jessie was anxious. She brought her artwork to a local art gallery and saw dozens of other participants. Her paintings looked simpler than many of the others, and this only increased her doubts. But Amy was there for her. "You've already won, Jessie. You took the first step. That's the most important thing," she said. The exhibition lasted all day. People came up to the paintings and discussed them. Jessie stood in the corner, watching the reactions. To her surprise, several people stopped by her work. One man said to his wife, "It's so simple, yet so sincere. Look at these emotions." These words melted the ice in Jessie's heart. She realized that her work had value, even if it wasn't perfect. When the results of the competition were announced, Jessie stood at the very back of the room, not expecting anything special. She already considered her participation a victory because she had dared to show her work to the world. The judges announced the winners in different categories. Jessie was ready to leave when she heard her name. Her painting, Old Bridge, received a special award for sincerity and authenticity. It was a real shock for her. She went up on stage, blushing with excitement, and the judge, handing her the certificate, said, "This work reminded us that art is not about technical perfection, but about emotions. Your painting tells a story that we want to hear." After the competition, Jessie received her first order. A local coffee shop wanted to buy her paintings for interior decoration. The owner of the cafe said, "I think your artwork will create the warm atmosphere we want to convey to our customers." This was her first income from her art. Jessie was filled with joy and fear at the same time. What if this is just a fluke success? What if I can't create anything this good again? Emmy, who had always supported her, answered, "You have talent, but the most important thing is courage. You've already taken the first step, and now you just have to keep going." Jessie started working on new paintings. She used her free time after work at a coffee shop, sometimes staying late into the night. Her apartment turned into a small studio. Paints, canvases, and pencils were everywhere. When her works appeared in the cafe, people started to pay attention to them. One of the visitors, the owner of a small gallery, took an interest and invited Jessie to organize her own exhibition. She thought the idea was too ambitious, but Emmy reminded her once again, "Your talent deserves to be seen." After several months of preparation, Jessie opened her first exhibition. She exhibited 10 works, each telling her story, from doubts and fears to her first success. The opening was attended by friends, local artists, and even a few members of the media. People came up to Jessie, shared their impressions, and some even bought her work. One evening after the exhibition, she was approached by a man who introduced himself as the director of a local art center. He said, "Your story is inspiring. We would like to invite you to give a master class for young artists. You show us that it is possible to achieve your dreams even from a small town." That evening, on the way home, Jessie realized, "My struggle with doubt is not the end. It's part of the journey. But now I know that every small step can lead to something big." After her first exhibition, Jessie received more attention than she could have expected. News of her work spread through the city, and her story became a source of inspiration for many. The art center invited her to give a workshop, and this was a new challenge for Jessie. She had never considered herself a teacher and was afraid that she would not be able to pass on her experience. But Amy supported her again. "Just be yourself. People want to hear your story, and that's a great value." About 20 people attended the workshop, young artists, teenagers who were just starting to paint, and even a few adults who wanted to resume their old hobby. Jessie spoke about her journey, how her doubts almost stopped her, and how she learned to fight her fears. She shared the main techniques she used and gave everyone a simple but important piece of advice. Draw what you feel. Don't think about what others will say. If it comes from the heart, it is already art. One of the participants, a young man named Tim, who had always been afraid to show his work, said after the workshop, "You helped me realize that I can create for myself, not for others. It's freeing." Jessie remembers this moment as one of the most touching in her life. After the workshop, Jessie began to receive invitations to new exhibitions. Her style, which was characterized by sincerity and simplicity, resonated with people. However, her growing popularity brought new challenges. Critics appeared who considered her work too simple or not technical enough. This hurt Jessie, but she decided that she would not let doubt stop her anymore. She began experimenting with new styles, studying the art of other artists, and even enrolled in an online course on modern painting techniques. One day, Jessie received an email inviting her to participate in a large-scale exhibition in Chicago. It was something incredible for her, because Chicago had always seemed like an unattainable place for people like her. The exhibition was to bring together artists from all over the country, and each of them was to present 3 works that best revealed their personality. Jessie decided this was her chance. She created a series of paintings that told her story, doubt, the first step, and the power of a dream. There were many people at the exhibition in Chicago: art critics, collectors, and journalists. Jessie was one of the youngest participants and felt like a small fish in a big sea. But when people started to approach her paintings, she noticed that they stopped, stared, and even took pictures. One critic said, "These works remind us that real art is not about technique, but about the story it tells." A collector bought her series and offered to collaborate. It was the moment when Jessie realized that her dreams were coming true. On the way home, Jessie thought about how important it was to take the first step. She realized that the path to a dream is not just about talent or technique, but about the ability to keep going, even when the doubts seem stronger. "I started this journey from a small coffee shop, but now I know I can achieve anything. And this is just the beginning," she reflected. After the success of the exhibition in Chicago, Jessie's life changed. Her work began to be exhibited in galleries across the country. She became a guest artist at various events, and even received her first international commission, a painting for a famous cultural center in Europe. But with this came new challenges. Her popularity began to put pressure on her. Each new project was accompanied by expectations, criticism, and doubts. One day, while working on a commission for a large corporation, Jessie realized that she had lost the emotion that once inspired her to paint. Her work was becoming more technical, but less sincere. "Why did I start doing this?" she thought as she sat in front of a blank canvas. The pressure of deadlines and client demands was forcing her to work mechanically. Jessie felt that her art had become a job, not something that brought her joy. One day, Jessie decided to take a break. She took a few weeks off and returned to her hometown. She wanted to remember where it all started. She spent her days in places that had inspired her as a child, by the old bridge, in the field she had painted in her youth. She even visited the very coffee shop where she used to work. One evening, while looking through her old sketches, Jessie realized, "The point of my work is not to satisfy someone else. I want to tell stories that are important to me." Back in her studio, Jessie began working on a new series of paintings. She decided that she would not focus on the market or customer expectations. It would be a project for herself. The series was called The Way to Yourself. It consisted of 5 works, each of which told about different stages of her life: childhood dreams, fears, first success, disappointment, and returning to her essence. When the series was completed, Jessie decided to present it at an exhibition without waiting for commercial success. The opening of the exhibition was attended by more people than she expected. Viewers stopped at each work, looking closely at the details. One of the paintings, Returning to Myself, caused the most discussion. A journalist who attended the event wrote, "This series is a reminder that true art begins when an artist listens to his or her heart. Jessie Carter has managed to create something that resonates with each of us." Her work has once again attracted the attention of collectors, but the most important thing for Jessie was that she had regained her inspiration. After the exhibition, Jessie told her friend Emma, "I realized the main thing: success cannot define you. It's important that you stay true to yourself. This is the real triumph." The series, The Way to Yourself, received a huge response in the art world. Jessie's work evoked emotions that seem to have long been lost in the modern world. Her works were honest, real, and close to everyone who has ever doubted themselves. One day Jessie received a letter from Paris. She was invited to participate in the most prestigious contemporary art exhibition in Europe. It was a shock for Jessie. Paris? This is unreal, she thought. The exhibition was a real challenge. Jessie stood next to famous artists from all over the world. She was worried whether her work would be worthy of this level. But everything changed when a critic from a leading art magazine wrote, "Her paintings are not just art. They are a mirror of the human soul." When Jessie took the stage to receive the award, she said, "I am not standing here because of talent or recognition. I am standing here because I once took the first step. And each of you can do the same." After the exhibition in Paris, Jessie realized that she wanted to do more than just paint. She wanted to help those who, like her, were afraid to start. She opened an art center in her hometown. The center became a place where young artists could learn, experiment, and receive support. One day, a girl of about 10 came to the center. She was holding crumpled sheets of paper with drawings and said shyly, "I don't know if this is good." Jessie smiled, took the sheets and said, "If you put a little bit of yourself into it, that's good. Let's work together." This moment was the most important in her life. She realized that her true mission was not only to create art, but also to inspire others. However, not everything was smooth sailing. One day, a major collector who had previously supported her refused to work with her because of her simple style. He said, "Your work is too emotional. It's not what the market wants." These words hurt Jessie. She began to doubt herself, to feel the fear that had once almost stopped her. Amy, who had always been there for her, said, "The market doesn't determine your value. You became who you are because you were honest with yourself. Don't change who you are." These words reminded Jessie that her art is not about commerce, but about the people it touches. After that, Jessie decided to focus on her mission. She held a series of lectures in different cities, telling her story and inspiring people. At one of the lectures, a young man came up to her after the talk and said, "Your words changed my life. I was afraid to start painting, but now I know I can." These moments were a reminder to Jessie that every step counts. A few years later, Jessie organized the biggest exhibition of her life called Light in the Heart. She invited the artists she supported to showcase their work. At the opening, she said, "This exhibition is not about me. It is about how each of us can light a fire in the hearts of others. I started with a small town and a lot of doubts, but now I know that the most important thing is to believe in your strength and help others see theirs." The exhibition became a sensation, but for Jessie, the main achievement was that dozens of young talents were able to take their first steps thanks to it. Your path may be hard, but every attempt, every risk, and every step forward counts. Don't be afraid to start, even if it seems impossible. The best is yet to come if you believe in yourself. If this story has touched your heart, please share it with those who doubt their abilities. Subscribe to Rise and Inspire to hear more stories like this that prove that every dream is worth the fight. Together we can achieve great things.